Okay. So as the name indicates, the drugs which are useful to promote the diuresis to increase the production of urine. Such drugs they are called as diuretics. Okay, so the main function of these diuretic drugs to increase the urination and through urination to increase the excretion of water and sodium ions. Okay, so what happens during the hypertension? The concentration of water, concentration of the ions, it increases. And if we have to treat the hypertension, we have to decrease this, or we have to treat the pressure, we have to decrease the pressure. So we have to reduce the level of water along with the level of ions like sodium ions from the body. आपण म्हणतो की ब्लड प्रेशर असेल तर मीठ खाऊ नका किंवा सॉल्ट खाऊ नका. ओके, ब्लड प्रेशर वाढतं. सो जे सोडियम आयन्स आहे त्याचं कॉन्सन्ट्रेशन जर वाढले इट विल इन्क्रीजेस द tension. So to decrease that tension, we have to reduce the concentration of sodium ions from the body. And how we can decrease this concentration of sodium ions? By giving the diuretics. When we are giving the diuretics, it is responsible for the diuresis to increase the concentration of urine, and through urine there is a excretion of lot of water along with the sodium ions. Hence, these diuretic agents are used. What are the uses of these diuretics? So they excrete the more amount of water and the ions to the body. They are mainly useful as to decrease the blood pressure. So it is useful in case of also the treatment of heart failure, in case of hypertension. It is also used in some case of liver damage or in case of some kidney diseases. So these are the uses. So the main use of these diuretics, that is the antihypertensive agents. So antihypertensive agents, these diuretic drugs or diuretic agents are given. Now we are moving to next part, that is the urine formation or how the urine formation takes place in the kidney, in the nephron. Okay, actually through urine, when urine formation takes place, the necessary ions like sodium ions, potassium ions, or chloride ions, fluid like water, what happens? They are reabsorbed into the blood circulation. So their concentration in the urine decreases. So what happens if their concentration in the urine decreases? Their concentration in the blood is high, but it is no problem when there is a normal condition is present. But when disease condition is present like hypertension, it is better to remove these ions like sodium ions, chloride ions, and the fluid like water from blood into the urine, and they must be excreted through the urine or in the form of urine. Okay, so for that, for studying the diuresis, we have to first know how the urine formation takes place, what are the different parts of the nephron where reabsorption of these kind of ions takes place. Okay, so just go through this structure. This is the structure of nephron through which the urine formation takes place. Okay, when filtrate comes in the Bowman capsule, they enters into the proximal tubules. This is proximal tubules. From they enters into the descending loop of Henle. Here the ascending loop of Henle. Then these are the distal convoluted tubules. Then these are the collecting tubules. So in this way, the different parts of nephron takes place. Okay, so in proximal tubules there are different channels are present. So this sodium channels, the reabsorption of sodium into the blood circulation takes place. One more channel is there, that is it is not a channel, it is actually a symporter or portar. So it consists of sodium potassium symporter. So what happens? One sodium ion and one potassium ion, it is reabsorbed into the blood circulation through this channel. Here Na plus H plus antiporter. Okay, what is antiporter? When sodium ions it enters into the blood circulation, if there is a presence of hydrogen which exit from the blood circulation and enters into the urine. Okay, so sodium ions, exit of sodium ion takes place into the blood circulation, and the entry of H plus ions or the proton takes place into the urine. So in this way, the proximal tubules is consist of different channel, symporter and antiporter. Now we will move to the next part. It is This is descending loop of Henle, from which the reabsorption of water takes place. Okay, then it goes to this part, that is the green color part. It is called as ascending loop of Henle. Okay, in ascending loop of Henle there is one symporter or co-porter present, that is the 2-chloride sodium potassium porter. So through this porter, two ions of chlorides and single ion of sodium, single ion of potassium, they enters into the blood. That is the reabsorption of these ions. Then it goes to this part, that is the convoluted tubules. In this part, there is two types of channel or co-transporters are present. This is sodium chloride co-transporter. So one molecule of sodium, one molecule of chloride, together they enters into the blood. That is the reabsorption of this molecule takes place, and then a single sodium ions present, which sodium ions is responsible to undergo reabsorption process into the blood. Then from here we move to the last part, that is collecting duct. So this is important part in the collecting duct. It consists of different antiporters. Okay, so this is one antiporter, sodium H plus. So sodium enters into the urine, H plus ions, sorry, sodium enters into the blood, H plus ions enters into the urine. So that is the antiporter. This is very important. Sodium potassium antiporter. This sodium potassium antiporter is driven by, or it is activated by hormone called as aldosterone. When aldosterone is present, one molecule of sodium it will undergo reabsorption into the blood circulation, and one molecule of, oh sorry, one ion of potassium it enters into the urine from the blood. So this process is catalyzed by, or the activated by, or driven by hormone aldosterone. So there are again one antiporter, sodium hydrogen antiporter is there. It collecting tubules, there is the presence of ADH, that is the antidiuretic hormones. So this ADH or the antidiuretic hormones, it is responsible to reabsorb the water molecule from the collecting tubules. So in this way, the nephron is classified, or it is divided into four parts. One is the site 1, second one is the site 2, that is the ascending loop of Henle, site 3 convoluted tubules, site 4 that is the collecting tubules. Okay, so yellow part is site 1, green part site 2, blue part site 3, and the remaining pink part, that is the site 4. So the drugs which are useful in the urine formation or increase the urination, that is the diuretics, these drugs are classified generally into the 5 types, but depending upon these sites they are classified into 4 types. And fifth class of the diuretic, that is the osmotic diuretics, they do not comes under these sites. Okay, so the drugs which act on the site 1, they are called as site 1 diuretics, which act on site 2, that is the site 2 diuretics, which act on site 3, that is the site 3 diuretics, which act on site 4, they are called as site 4 diuretics. Now what is diuresis? So diuresis is to increase the urine formation and to excrete the urine in large amount or more amount along with the water and the different ions like sodium ions, chloride ions. Okay. Now, if you observe that in site 1 diuretics, there is sodium ions present, potassium ions present, as well as the sodium hydrogen antipotar is present. So, if we have to increase the concentration of sodium ions or different ions and the water in the urine, we have to inhibit these channel or these porters or co-transporters. Hence, the drugs which comes under the site 1 diuretics, what their role? Their role is to block all these symporter or channels so that sodium ions it will not enter into the blood. That is the reabsorption of sodium ions or potassium ions or chloride ions does not takes place. Hence, their concentration in the urine increases and they can excrete it through the urine. Similarly, which act on site 2, they are responsible to inhibit this co-transporter. So, chloride ions, sodium ions, and potassium ions, it will remain as it is in the urine. Site 3 diuretics, that is the sodium chloride symporter. So, they are responsible to block this symporter, and due to the blocking this symporter, what happens? Sodium and chloride ions, it will remain as it is in the urine. Then site 4 diuretics. The site 4 diuretics, they are generally called as the potassium sparing diuretics. So site 4 diuretics, we have to inhibit the aldosterone, their activity, because if we inhibit the aldosterone activity, this antiporter will not work and sodium ions will remain as it is into the urine. Okay. So as per this, the diuretics they are classified into four types. First one, drugs acting on site 1, they are called as site 1 diuretics. Generally, they are acting on proximal convoluted tubules. And examples are carbonic anhydrase inhibitors like acetazolamide. The drug which act on site 2, they are called as site 2 diuretics, as it is the ascending loop of Henle or it acts on ascending loop of Henle. They are also called as loop diuretics. Then site 3 diuretics, it is the convoluted tubules, the drugs which comes under this or which produce their activity at site 3, they called as site 3 diuretics. They generally have the structure like thiazide or thiazide-like structure, so they are also called as thiazide diuretics. And site 4 diuretics in the collecting ducts, they are generally called as potassium sparing diuretics. They consist of the aldosterone antagonist and other drugs which are responsible to decrease the concentration of sodium ions or the reabsorption of sodium ions into the blood. So in this way the classification takes place, and the fifth one which does not comes under the different sites of the nephron, that is the osmotic diuretics. Okay, we will move into the first part of the first classification of the diuretics. It is the site 1 diuretics. For your syllabus, in site 1 diuretics, there is a carbonic anhydrase inhibitors are there. So these carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, as the name suggests, they are responsible to decrease the activity of enzyme carbonic anhydrase. Okay, so this is carbonic anhydrase. So what is the role of carbonic anhydrase? Water plus CO2, it forms carbonic acid. This carbonic acid is formed when the reaction of H2O along with the CO2 takes place. And then this H2CO3, it is dissociated into H plus and HCO3 minus. So this carbonic anhydrase, they are responsible for the conversion of water and carbon dioxide into the carbonic acid. Then this carbonic acid, in the presence of same enzyme carbonic anhydrase, it is converted again back into the water and CO2. So it performs both the functions, that is the conversion of water plus carbon dioxide into carbonic acid, and opposite the conversion of carbonic acid into H2CO3 into the water molecule and carbon dioxide. Now, so as carbonic anhydrase perform this function as well as this function, if we are giving the carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, it will not take place. So H2O plus CO2, it will not converted into carbonic acid, that is the H2CO3. And if they are not converted into H2CO3, they are not converted into the H plus and SCO3 minus. Similarly, this step is also inhibited. So in this way, what happens if H2CO3 is not formed? We are not getting the H plus ions. Okay, and if H plus ions have not present, what happens? This step will be inhibited. So in the site 1 diuretics or the site 1 of the nephron, what is present? There is a presence of one antiportar, that is the sodium ions. It comes into the blood, that is the reabsorption of sodium ion takes place with the replacement of H plus ions. This H plus ions, it will enters into the urine. But if H plus ions are not present due to the inhibition of carbonic anhydrase, the H2CO3, it will not convert into H plus and HCO3 minus. And if it will not convert H plus and HCO3 minus, H plus are not present, so that sodium ions will not enter into the blood, or the reabsorption of sodium ion does not takes place. So the sodium ion remain in this part, that is in the urine, in the nephron, and it can be excreted through the urine. So that is the mechanism of action of this first site 1 diuretics, that is the carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. Now SAR of this carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, the acetazolamide, that is the prototype for this group. This is the structure of acetazolamide. Okay, so the SAR indicates that the sulfamyl group, this group is necessary for the activity, and if this is necessary for the activity, we cannot substitute the nitrogen of the sulfamyl group with any other group like CH3, C2H5 or any of the heterophilic group. So the SO2 NH2 should remain as it is. There is no substitution on nitrogen. Okay, then we can substitute one of the nitrogen which is present in this ring with the CH3. If such takes place, the carbonic anhydrase inhibitory activity, it will remain as it is. For example, methazolamide. And the group which attaches, so here sulfamyl, this is sulfamyl moiety, this is the group to which sulfamyl moiety is attached. So the group which attached to the sulfamyl moiety, suppose this is the group which is attached to the sulfamyl moiety, it must possess the aromatic character. Okay, so the first part, SO2 NH2 is necessary for the activity. Second part, SO2 NH2 cannot be substituted. Third part, we can substitute the nitrogen which is present in the ring with the methyl group, for example methazolamide, which will possess the, or which will retain the carbonic anhydrase activity. The next part, the remaining part other than sulfamyl group, it must consist of the aromatic character. So this is the example of acetazolamide. This is the methazolamide. In that, one of the nitrogen, it is attached with the methyl group, so it is methazolamide. This is another example, ethoxyzolamide. This is brinzolamide. So these are the four drugs which comes under the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Okay. Then site 2 diuretics. It is also called as high ceiling or loop diuretic. Then next part of the diuretics, or the drugs which act on diuretics, they are called as site 3 diuretics. So the drugs which act on site 3, which are responsible to inhibit the reabsorption of ions from site 3, these drugs, they are comes under the diuretics. And these drugs, or these site 3 diuretics, they having the thiazide, benzothiazide, or these like structures. So they are also called as thiazide diuretics, benzothiazide diuretics, because the drugs which having this type of structure or like structure, that is similar structure like thiazide or benzothiazide. So this is the structure of thiazide, or you can say thiazine. And when we are attaching a benzene ring, the structure becomes benzo, sulfur is there, so thia, two nitrogens are present, so diazine. So it is called as benzothiazine. So this is the scaffold, or this is the basic nucleus which are present inside three diuretics, that is the benzothiazine. As the numbering start, that is sulfur it gets 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so in this way the numbering takes place. At 1 to the sulfur, then this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, 5, this is 6, this is 7, and this carbon it gets number 8. Okay, so we will start with the SAR of these diuretics. The first point in the SAR is that these type of drugs, they are weak acid. So they consist of two types of acidic groups which are present in this structure. One is this NH group, and second one this SO2 NH2, in that this NH2 group. So these two groups, they are responsible to, or these two groups are having the acidic nature in this structure. Out of this one, the second position NH group is more acidic as compared to this group, as they are present in the ring structure, so resonating effect is there, as well as this SO2 group which is present in the ring structure, they are responsible to produce more kind of electron withdrawing effect. Hence, the NH group present at the second position becomes electron deficient, so they can accept more amount of electrons and they becomes more acidic as compared to this free SO2 NH2 group which are present as substituted at the 7th position. So during SAR, the first point that these are the weak acids. Second one, the SO2 group present at the first position must be for the activity. So this group, that is the SO2 group which is present at the first position, it is must for activity. We cannot replace this SO2 group, or we cannot replace sulfur with the carbon. So SO2 group is must for the activity. Next part, hydrogen present on N, it is at the second position, becomes more acidic because of electron withdrawing effect of SO2. So that we have already discussed. Then next part, the C3 and nitrogen, if saturated, the activity will increase by 10 times. So this is third carbon, this is nitrogen. Okay, so this third carbon and nitrogen, there is double bond is present. So if we make it is saturated, that means if we remove this double bond between this C3 and nitrogen which is present at the fourth position, the drug becomes, this part becomes saturated and the activity will increases by 10 times. Next one, this R3 that is present at the third position, it can be substituted the groups like haloalkyl, araalkyl, thioether. If we substitute it by these groups, then their lipophilicity increases and ultimately it will give better duration of activity. So these are the points which are comes under the SAR. Next point, if we add alkyl group at N2 position, it will decreases polarity and it will increases duration of action. Next point, at sixth position, there must be presence of electron withdrawing group. If electron donating groups are present, they will disturb the resonating effect and it will decreases the activity. So at the sixth position, we can substitute it with the halogens CF3. Okay, so they are the highly active. Okay, but if at that position, if electron releasing group or electron donating group is present, the activity decreases. At sixth position, if trifluoromethane is present, then it will increase lipid solubility and duration of activity as compared with the chlorine. Okay, so at the seventh position, SO2 NH2 present, it must be present for the optimum activity. We cannot substitute this NH2 group with any other methyl group or ethyl group or any other group like NHCH3, NHC2H5 or NCH3CH3. Like this, we cannot go for the substitution. Okay, NH2CO2 is the weak group is the acid, but is the weak acid as compared to this NH. These acidic groups, they are required for the water soluble salt formation or for the better aqueous solubility. So next part, that is the examples. In the examples, this is the structure, this is the second structure. Okay, at this NH group we can substitute with the NCH3, it will retain the activity. So here in second group they are substituted this group. So chlorothiazide, benzthiazine, hydrochlorothiazine, hydrochlorothiazide, trichloromethazide, methyl chlorothiazide. These are the examples which comes under these benzthiazine derivatives. These are the other examples, that is the metolazone, quinathazone, chlorthalidone, indapamide. These are comes under this side 3 diuretics, but they are the benzothiazine like derivatives. They are not the thiazide or benzothiazine derivative. They are the like derivatives, as they consist of sulfamyl moiety, they consist of the benzene ring, they consist of the halogen. So they are the similar kind of structure which comes under these groups. Okay, so SAR first position, SO2 group must be present, it cannot be replaced. This NH group, instead of H we can substitute with the CH3, it will no effect on activity. The R3 groups which is present, this R3 group, it can be the aralkyl, thioether or haloalkyl, that is the lipid soluble drug, lipid soluble group, so that increases the duration of activity. This double bond between C3 and this nitrogen, if we made it saturated, we can remove that double bond, it will increases the activity 10 times with these unsaturated compound. At the sixth position there must be presence of electron withdrawing group. If electron donating group is present, what happens, it will changes the resonance and it will decreases the activity. And in that, if CF3 group is present, it will show better activity, better duration of action because of its higher lipid solubility. At the seventh position, there is presence of SO2NH2. This SO2NH2 is necessary for the activity. We cannot replace this group, and mainly the NH2 group must be in the NH2 form. We cannot substitute the hydrogen which is present on the NH2 by any other group like alkyl group or any other cycloalkyl group or aromatic groups. Okay, the NH group at this position is more acidic as compared to the this NH2 which is present at the 7th position. The next class, that is site 4 diuretics. So the drugs which act on site 4, that is the collecting tubules, they are called as site 4 diuretics. So site 4 diuretics, they are classified into two types, that is aldosterone antagonist and directly acting diuretics. So as we have studied, this is a collecting tubules. So in the collecting tubules there is a reabsorption of sodium takes place. So from collecting tubules or the nephron, the sodium ions, it exit and it enters into the blood. Similarly, potassium ions, it enters into the urine. So potassium ions, they are excreted through the urine. Sodium ions, they comes into the blood, their reabsorption into the blood takes place. Okay, so that is the general mechanism takes place in the collecting tubules, and this is one antiporter present, and there is another, okay, another antiporter is present, that is the sodium proton, that is the sodium and H plus. Here potassium is there, instead of that H plus ions are there. But this sodium potassium, this antiporter is catalyzed by, or it is activated by aldosterone. So aldosterone is the mineralocorticoid. It is a steroid hormone which is responsible to carry this reaction. That is the sodium potassium antiporter. Okay. So depending upon that, these side four diuretics, they are classified into two parts. One is aldosterone antagonist, second one is direct acting diuretics. So the directly acting diuretics, they directly act on these antiporter and they inhibit the reabsorption of sodium ions. But in case of aldosterone antagonists, they are responsible to block the activity of aldosterone. So these aldosterone antagonists, they block the activity of aldosterone. Okay. So examples eplerenone and spironolactone. These are the aldosterone antagonists and directly acting diuretics. They are amiloride and triamterene. So this is the structure of aldosterone. This is the steroid hormone, that is a mineralocorticoid which is responsible to activate these antiporter so that sodium ions it will reabsorb into the blood and potassium ions it comes into the urine. Mhm. So aldosterone antagonists, they must have the similar structure like steroid hormones. That is the steroidal structure because aldosterone is the steroid. So these spironolactone, if they have to compete with the aldosterone, they must have the similar structure of aldosterone. Okay, then only it can compete with the aldosterone for the binding to the receptor, and instead of aldosterone this spironolactone it binds to the receptor and it will block the activity of aldosterone. Okay, so sodium and water are excreted but the potassium ion it will remains into the blood. Now, as I have told, the sodium ions and potassium ions. So the potassium ions come from blood into the urine, and sodium ions exit from urine into the blood. So that is the reabsorption of sodium ion takes place and excretion of potassium ion takes place during the normal functioning. But when we are giving the aldosterone antagonist, this process is inhibited. Hence, the potassium ions it will remain as it is in the blood. Hence, these diuretics they are also called as potassium sparing diuretics. Because if we are giving these diuretics, the potassium ion concentration in the blood increases, and this potassium ion remains into the blood. Okay, so they are called as the potassium sparing diuretics. So uses edema, antihypertensive agent they are using for this one. Hyperkalemia, as we have discussed, potassium ions it will remains into the blood, so the concentration of potassium ion in the blood increases, it will results into the hyperkalemia. The metabolic acidosis, gynecomastia in men, breast tenderness, then GIT symptoms. These are takes place as a side effects of spironolactone. So this is the structure of spironolactone. This is its IUPAC name, IUPAC name. The spironolactone, when it undergo metabolism, it gives the structure that is the canrenone. It is a metabolite product of spironolactone. So this canrenone is the active metabolite. It is also having the activity of aldosterone antagonist. So these undergo metabolism. So this SOCH3 it is removed during the metabolism and we are giving the active metabolite that is the canrenone. This is the structure of eplerenone. It is also the aldosterone antagonist. It having the steroidal structure. These are the metabolites of eplerenone at 6th position. If hydroxylation takes place, it is called as 6-beta hydroxyeplerenone. Sometimes at the 6th position and at 20 position the hydroxylation takes place. It is called as dihydroxyeplerenone. Here also at 21st position or at third and sixth position. So in which way epirenol undergo metabolism in these two ways, that is they are responsible to form hydroxylation at sixth position, hydroxylation at 6 and 21 position, hydroxylation at only 20 position, or 3 and 6 position. The next drug, that is the trimethoprim, as they are not the aldosterone antagonists, they act by other way. They don't have the structure similar with the steroidal hormones. So at the sixth position, there is a phenyl substitution is present. So if phenyl substituted with the hydroxy group, it will increases the activity. That is the first point of SAR. If at sixth position hydroxy group is substituted on phenol, it will increases the activity. And this phenyl group, it can be replaced by other small heterocyclic rings. Then again, the amino groups, there are three amino groups are present. They must be present in the form of NH2. These groups cannot be substituted like NHCH3 or NCH3CH3. Then next one, the structure is similar like pteridine. So pteridine is the part of folic acid. So due to the structural similarities with the folic acid, they are also act as the dihydrofolate reductase, but they having the very little activity as they having the only small part of the folic acid. So that is the SAR. First part, para position, 6 position phenyl group, there must be presence at the hydroxy group at the para position. Second one, 6 phenyl group can be replaced by small heterocyclic ring. Third one, these three amine groups, it must be present in the form of unsubstitution. And fourth one, due to the structure similarities with the folic acid part, that is the pteridine, it shows some kind of DHFR inhibitors, but they are having very little activity. Now this structure is the pteridine structure. Okay, so these two rings, they are the pteridine structures. Okay, at the sixth position phenyl group is present, so it is called as 6-phenyl pteridine or 6-aryl pteridine, and there are three amine groups are present at second position, fourth position and seventh position, so they are called as 2 4 7 triamino at sixth position aryl group, so 6-aryl pteridine. Then next example, that is the amiloride. It is the pyrazinol guanidine derivatives. So this is the structure of guanidine. This is the structure of pyrazine. So CO is present. So pyrazinoid guanidine structures, they are present. Okay, they are having the similar effect. They are the directly acting groups. SAR, similar type of SAR at the sixth position. Cl is present, electron withdrawing group. At the third and fifth position, amine group present, they must be unsubstituted. And the guanidine nitrogen, which is present, this part and this part, they are not substituted with alkyl group. If they are substituted with alkyl group, they will decreases the activity.